Welcome to the Lord Be With You podcast show. I'm your host, Azzy. Just thinking about some of the interesting stuff going on in fandom this week. But before we even get to that, we've got some really exciting episodes of the show coming up. Look out for an episode we're going to be on Superman, a Superman special talking about all the different Superman or Supermen within the multiverse, and even talking about other characters connected to Superman, like the different versions of Supergirl, the different sort of iterations of the Superman character. I didn't realize how many versions of Superman and Supergirl there are. There is a plethora of these superpowered Kryptonians coming from a lot of different universes in this sort of multiverse ensemble in the DC canon. It's amazing, and it's really creative as well. And we're going to be talking with Omar, giving some kind of quick conversation about the different iterations of this character. Now, this has been inspired by a picture, a great comic book artist drawing of Superman, and showing the ensemble of Superman and Supergirl flying into the sky. Really nice picture, and then somebody's labeled them on the picture afterwards. So that's really inspired this up and coming episode, really talking about all the different versions of these Superman and Supergirl characters and the different iterations of them within the multiverse. Because there was so many on this picture that I just didn't know, and I'm like, hang on a minute, who's that one? I know that one. I knew probably about 5 of them, but in the picture there's probably about 30 or more, and I probably knew about 5, maybe 6, 7 at a push. So I thought, hang on, we really need to do an episode on this, and so that's something to look forward to very, very soon, coming up very soon. Also, we've got a special Lord of the Rings episode coming up with Luke Saul, who is my favorite sort of Tolkien expert that I know, and he's really kind of has great knowledge in this area as well. It's not the only area he's knowledgeable in, but I don't want to inflate his ego. But he's a very humble guy as well. We're getting around to doing this Wizards episode of the Lord of the Rings, so this is exciting as well. So some great episodes to look out for on the Lord Be With You podcast show, which is also on YouTube as Christian Fandom Geek. Now, just kind of thinking about why I'm doing this episode today, was looking around in fandom universe, fandom world, and John Boyega. Now, we love John Boyega on the Lord Be With You podcast show, especially as in his role as Finn in the recent Star Wars sequel trilogy. I still say that Finn was underutilized, especially in The Last Jedi. Kind of made a bit of a comeback in the Rise of Skywalker, but yeah, essentially, the Finn character was very, very underutilized, and so we're gonna in the next segment coming up, we're going to be talking about some of the comments that John Boyega said very recently about Finn. Welcome back to the Lord Be With You podcast show. So, yeah, we're talking about John Boyega in this part now, and you can't get this guy out of the news. He really is a very enigmatic and charismatic young actor. Got a lot of time for John Boyega, a kind of British Nigerian, very forthright on his views, very willing to express himself. And he comes across as a young man with strong convictions, and I like that. I like, it's not that I'm going to always agree with, whoever is speaking on whatever they're speaking on, whether it be race or politics or Hollywood or fandom. It doesn't mean that we're always going to agree, guys. And this is a really important concept in the times that we're living in, with this kind of delete culture, what I call it, kind of sort of the delete imperative, where if you say things that are sort of going against the grain, if you're saying things that are not in tune with the social narrative, you could be in a situation where you're really going to get deleted. You're going to get shut down. Now, we have spoke about this on the show. I have spoke about this on the show. It's really important because obviously there are boundaries. There are things that shouldn't be said. There are views that are going to be that bad or that immoral or that wicked in terms of, not wicked in a good way, sort of abhorrent sort of views that it should be like, yeah, they've gone past boundaries here. It borders on hate or things that are, pretty nasty or just not right. And in that case, there is it is justified to say, yeah, we can't be promoting that. That's gone beyond us. That's gone on a certain level that we can't tolerate that kind of. We can't tolerate hate. We can't tolerate sort of discrimination of any kind. That's not right. And so in that, totally supporting that, 100% supporting that. And everybody who is of a sound mind, everybody who's got a decent moral compass, whether you are religious or not, everyone has their own sort of moral compass and moral code, their ethics. And if you're somebody that is trying to live a decent life and be a good person, then you're going to be against discrimination. But we also know the other side of the scale is the delete imperative, which is kind of if you're not following a certain trend or narrative, and whether you're a decent person or not, it really could impact your career. And I like thinking of John Boyega. I like the fact that and I am really thinking about a lot of the stuff that happened with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. Now, I'm not going to go explicitly into Black Lives Matter on this episode of the show. Whether you're for it or against it, it's not really an issue for me, in especially like in this episode of the show. And in general, people have their views for Black Lives Matter as an organization. Now, I'm not talking about as a statement of fact. I think every decent person on the planet will agree that Black Lives Matter and that all lives matter, and that for all lives to matter, it means that Black lives need to matter as well. And that's how it really is. It really is as simple as that. It's like all lives matter. Yes, all lives do matter. But then Black lives also need to matter as well. And so when Black lives matter, then all lives matter as well. And that's how I look at it. It's a simple thing. I'm Black myself. I love my Black, sort of Caribbean, British heritage. I'm proud of being Black and British. I'm proud of the sort of Caribbean heritage that comes from my family. I'm proud of my Britishness and being born in the UK and being a very sort of loud and proud Brit as well. And so I think for me, there is that sort of synthesis and fusion of different worlds. I feel like sometimes a young man of, if I can call myself a young man, of different worlds, of the kind of cultural worlds that you come from, being Black and being Caribbean, and the cultural worlds that come from being British and, speaking the Queen's English, and the sort of cultural phenomenon and quintessential Britishness that comes with that as well. And so there are a lot of different things to think about in that way. And obviously, going back to John Boyega spoke out a lot, I guess politically, sort of, and in a way, you could think it could have, it could put people, filmmakers and studio executives off, sort of looking at John Boyega. They're thinking, oh, maybe he's too political. He's speaking out about Black Lives Matters and he's speaking out about race and politics. And do we want to hire a lead central protagonist who is so vocal about these things? But I love that about John Boyega. I love that about other actors, men and women, who will speak out about these things. Now, I'm not saying that it needs to be spoken out about in the wrong way, because I know that some actors and some sports personalities and some popularizers do it in the wrong way, where it becomes kind of signal virtuous sort of thing, and you kind of like highlighting, maybe doing it in a sort of disingenuous sort of way to score points, or in a way to just bring about a bit of propaganda, and it's called signal virtuing, and you're kind of like, you're trying to say, oh, look how great we are, and and by virtue of how great we are, you guys are not so great, or look how awesome we are. And it can turn into a bit of an ego thing and a scoring political points, and just kind of very superficial, a superficial righteousness sort of thing. And I'm not into that. I'm not into a superficial righteousness. I'm not into sort of, looking good, but not really having the substance. If you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. And that's a way that I look at it in that sort of way, as somebody who thinks about these things, as somebody who's quite philosophical in thinking about life, is if you're gonna preach it, you gotta walk it. It's quite simple as that. And John Boyega, he seems to me as a young man who is actually, he will speak out on these matters, but I think he's trying to walk it as well. Now, I can't judge his personal walk in terms of his Christian faith or how he interacts with every single person he knows, but in terms of what I've come across him, he does seem to have that sort of conviction. He does seem to be able to speak out on these things, and I personally have appreciated that as well. And as a Star Wars fan, and I said, like, the collaborators on this show as well are Star Wars fans. We're enjoying sort of him. We've enjoyed him as Finn. I feel like he's been underutilized as Finn, though, and I will say that. Now, going to this article, this story here, John Boyega open to Star Wars return if Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams are involved. Now, in the next portion of the show, we're going to talk explicitly about this. So go and get yourself a nice cup of tea or coffee, or if you have a Coca-Cola or lemonade, go and do that, and then be back with us in a second on the Lord Be With You podcast show. Welcome to the Lord Be With You podcast show. Today we really want to talk about John Boyega and Finn. Now, if you don't know about John Boyega, he's a really talented young actor, bit of an activist as well. Spoke out a lot about Black Lives Matter and some of the things that happened over George Floyd. Was it over a year ago now, I think. So he's really sort of somebody that has a lot of convictions, and I think I resonate with that as somebody that kind of, I'm doing a podcast, it's ported over to YouTube. Having an opinion or having a conviction about things, speaking out about things is really important. Now, I think in our time and in our generation, everybody's kind of thinking the same thing, and I could go, get your voice out there and speak on these important issues. And there is a divergence of opinions on these matters. Even Black Lives Matter itself is a controversial, sort of entity, as it were. And in terms of the, my general opinion on it, I'm not going to go on and on about, because this show is about fandom, but we do talk about race on the show, and we don't, kind of shirk or avoid talking about controversial things. And in terms of Black Lives Matters, I really supported John Boyega speaking out on that. I was grateful that somebody like himself would use his stardom and his platform to speak out about race. And it's a really difficult situation for everybody, I think, involved. But I certainly believe that he did the right thing. I think it could have affected his career potentially, yeah. But actually, when you're a person that's got a platform, when you're a person you've got strong opinions, strong convictions, and it's something close to your heart, almost like a righteous sort of spark within you to kind of speak out on these important things, I think you should do it. And I really had a ton of respect for John Boyega for speaking out on Black Lives Matter. Now, there will be some of you who listen to the show that will either not really know much about the racial stuff that's going on it's in the USA, but it's also kind of all over the world to a degree. Some of you won't really know much about it, or some of you will disagree and think, Black Lives Matter, the organization has issues. You might even be of the opinion that there's some communism kind of part of their sort of ethos, and that they're not really about sort of racial equality or racial justice, but maybe more about the situation to do with sort of bringing a sort of communist sort of ideology over, and that can be debated. It certainly can be debated. I don't fully invest in their politics. I'm more behind the statement Black Lives Matter. Now, you may say, well, don't all lives matter? And I would say, yes, all lives matter. And my philosophy would be on this, that all lives matter when Black Lives Matter. That's my philosophy on it. At the moment, in some situations, not in every situation, but in some situations, it comes across that Black lives haven't mattered in certain situations. And as somebody who is Black and somebody who is proud of being Black, and also proud of being British as well, proud of being a Christian who loves the Lord, there's so many areas of my life that I'm really proud of, and being somebody who has seen what's been going on with George Floyd and the things that have been going on with the racial disunity and the sort of, is disunity a word? I'm just thinking about that. I might need to check that out. But certainly the sort of lack of harmony, the sort of discord that's been going on all over the world, but especially in the USA over race. I was happy to see someone like John Boyega use his platform to speak out on it. And really, the heart of every decent person should be to want racial harmony, to want peace. You want peace with your neighbor. Look at the Bible, look at the sayings of Jesus, treat others how you would want to be treated yourself. And if you're not religious of any kind, there are the ways to look at things that you can look at. You can look at reality and know that actually, let's all kind of pull in the same direction. It is a good thing to want to treat others as you would want to be treated yourself. There's nothing bad about that. And we can all kind of get behind that sort of golden rule that you see in a lot of religions, actually, but it kind of, expressly, a tenet of Christianity. Some of these things to do with race and politics are very, how would I put it? You have to be very sophisticated in how you approach them, because they're historic things. They're historic narratives. There's generations of people in the USA and all over the world that have really struggled because of racial, whether it be racism, whether it be racial oppression, injustice, racial intolerance. There is a lot of situations in the States and all over the world that have really, there's been some difficult situations because of race. And so, when someone like John Boyega speaks out on it, and it could affect his career, I really respect that he's taken that stance. He's been a man of conviction, and I respect that about him. And so, just wanted to just kind of get that out there, and then we're going to talk a little bit about him as Finn in Star Wars now, and that will be on the next segment of the Lord Be With You podcast. So back with you very, very soon.